All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Lydia Zayas. I'm a program specialist with the Red Sox Foundation. For those of you who don't know me, since I know we have RBI players and some of our Red Sox scholars. So I run the Red Sox Scholars Program. And I just wanted to welcome you all to our Red Sox Foundation's Black History Month Speaker Series. I think Mick, in a second, will be introducing our guests, but we're really excited about this because we wanted to introduce you all to some amazing individuals in the community that are doing great work. So with that being said, Mick, take it away.
Thanks, Lydia. So I'm Mick, and I oversee our RBI softball program. We both, Lydia and I, are here to help facilitate an authentic conversation as we learn more about our guest today, who we're so excited to have on. And to our RBI players and scholars on the call, thank you for joining us. Today's going to be a lot of fun. But you don't want to hear Lydia and I talk, so we'll start right now. We're beyond thrilled to have our guest today join us. And if you've watched any Red Sox games since 2016, I pretty much guarantee that you've seen him on TV. His broadcast journalism degree has sent him across the whole nation, but is now a journalist, anchor, reporter, and host on our very own New England Sports Network. So it's my pleasure to introduce the very talented Jahmai Webster. Jahmai, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you guys for having me. That was quite the introduction. I don't think I've ever heard a better one in my life.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. I've only worked all day on it, so good to know that it was well received. Well, Jahmai, let's jump in. First, watching you on air, we can definitely tell that your personality shines through, and you're so fun to watch. But tell us a little about yourself, and I can kind of see where you're at. Is that a new studio? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it is. I'll give you guys a quick overview here. It's a little bit of the new NESN Studio A that was redesigned this past off season. So it's very much, I guess, on brand with the high-tech studios that we have out there that you'd see on national TV networks. So that's where I'm coming to you from right now. But as far as a little bit about me, I'm not from Boston. I don't know if anything gave it away by any chance. I'm from the West Coast. I'm from LA. I was born and raised in Inglewood, side of the Showtime Lakers way back when. I'm not sure if you guys even have heard of the Great Western Forum at this point. You're probably too young for that, but that's kind of where I was born and raised. And then later I moved out of the inner city to kind of the suburbs when my parents, they got a chance to get a home. So that's kind of where my humble beginnings were. And here we are now. I guess we'll kind of fill in the blanks, but that's just a little teaser about my background so far, I suppose.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think something that is really important to us in this discussion is just also trying to figure out and listen to what your career path was, things like, did you know what you wanted to be when, did you know what you wanted to be doing when you grew up, when you were in middle and in high school? That's the grades that the students are in. So if you can tell us a little bit about your career path.
Yeah, so I was actually one of the lucky ones, and some of you guys listening probably feel the same way. You probably already have an idea of what you want to do. You're certainly one of the lucky ones, because when I was in the third grade, I basically had charted out my life and what I wanted to do for a career. And it was basically sitting right here doing what I'm doing now, working on television. So we had a class project where we had to put together a school newspaper, and I was in charge of the comics. So I had to create a character, and I named her Torture Woman. She was inspired by this girl who sat next to me. I didn't like her or anything. It just, just kind of how it worked out. But I guess I was kind of introduced to storytelling at that point, because I just enjoyed telling a great story, and I enjoyed having to come up with the characters and the trajectory for where they were going to end up, and just creating basically at that point as a third grader with this project. So that then transformed into junior high school, and nothing really to do with journalism at that point, just all strictly books. Obviously, you guys understand how that is. But then I got to high school, And I played sports as well, which I guess kind of mirror the path that I wanted to go in, because I wanted to be connected to sports. Like if I wasn't going to go pro, if I was going to make it to the NBA, if I wasn't going to make it to the Major League Baseball, if I wasn't going to make it to the NFL, I wanted to be as close to it as possible. So I got to high school. I was playing high school basketball. That was primarily my focus at that point. I had let all the other sports really go, just to kind of focus on hoop. But I was also writing for the school newspaper. And when I was doing that, I was like, print is very cool. It's an exciting thing. And people are more inclined to talk to you, because at that point, I didn't really have a TV class or a TV course to take. So I was writing for the school newspaper and also playing sports. So I recall one time where I actually was like breaking a story on the girls basketball team. And it was just, that kind of sucked me into it. You know, that pulled me in, just the excitement and having something that I was going to share with everybody who had no idea about this. So I enjoyed the discovery of journalism, the fact that you can unleash things and shine a light on things that aren't seen. So that kind of pushed me in that direction. But this whole time, I knew that I wanted to do TV still. You know, I was getting an introduction to different forms of journalism, but print journalism was probably, I would say, the foundation for which my career was built upon. So once I graduated from college, or excuse me, high school, I went to Cal State Northridge. It's a state school about 20 miles north of downtown Los Angeles. So like Fresno State, San Diego State, all within the same Cal State system. So Northridge is about 20 miles north of there, downtown LA. So I went to Northridge, and I majored in broadcast journalism. It was my major right away, and I declared it as soon as I got stepped foot on campus. So I started to take TV classes, and I was really hooked at this point, because I guess at this point in my academic career, like I was an okay student, and you know, I got B's and a few A's sprinkled in, but a lot of C's, but nothing really sparked my interest. So it was just a bunch of classes that I didn't really care to take. So I was one of those kids who was like, I do enough to get by, because I wanted to stay out of trouble with my parents, most importantly, but also to be able to play sports. So once I got to college, I was just like hooked, because it was everything that I wanted to do. And I was learning, and I was grasping all the knowledge and taking it in. So first few years, you had to take what they call electives and, you know, some of your core courses to get your degree. So it was a few TV classes, but not much, not until my junior year, where I really took all the courses that were to do with basically being a career. Essentially, it was like showing up to a professional newsroom every day and coming up with story ideas and producing the newscast and thinking about all the different pieces that go into making television. So once I did that, it was just no turning back from there. So took a class where we had to put on a newscast once a week, which was a huge undertaking, which really, it's a trip now to think about it, because this was like a week's worth of a work just to put on 1.5 hour show. And now, you know, I show up to work at 2:00, we do a half-hour show, we do it every day within 6 to 8 hours, right? So just to see how far I've come, not only in the trade, but also in my career is kind of remarkable to see. But I graduated from college, and I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, please. Like I can go on forever.
No,
So,
you're not. You're not. You're not.
So
Please keep going.
I graduated from college. It was a 4-year institution, but I was on the 5-year plan because I was having too much fun partying, doing that whole thing, and really enjoying college life. I also joined a fraternity. So that kind of, you know, pushed me back a little bit because I gave more focus to the social aspect of college, but I was still on top of my academics. But I graduated in 5 years. And what you do is, once you're a senior in journalism, broadcast, you're taking this class that I mentioned, the newscast class that you're putting on an actual newscast, half-hour show. So through this, you know, you're contributing in various different ways. You're being the producer. At times you're the camera person. Other times you're writing. Other times you're the reporter. So, and then the other times you're also anchoring the show, which is sitting on this desk, kind of how I'm doing right now. So you have a wide range of all the different trades, all the different jobs within journalism, within television. And through that, through, you know, the entire semester, a couple years actually, really, putting together stories as a reporter, I was able to put together my resume reel. And it was like 10, 12 minutes, which is ridiculous because nobody's watching more than a minute for a resume reel. So that's something that I learned much later on, that you don't need that much. But I was just like, I want to put all the best things that I've done for the last 4 years, last 2 years on this reel so they can see that, I'm good at this and I want to get my shot. So this was 2008 that I was sending out all my resume tapes. And at this point, this was right at I guess, where the digital age really started to launch, because I was sending in actual DVDs like to every station across the country. Now you can just send a virtual, link on YouTube or Vimeo, whatever. It's so quick. But man, as
it's crazy that it hasn't been that long.
Right, exactly. This was just, 13 years ago. So within the 13-year span, technological advancements have gone through the roof. But as a broke college student, it was quite expensive to send a DVD to places way over here in the Northeast or, in the middle of the country. So I basically spent every dime that I had to try to get an opportunity. I'd say I sent probably 100 tapes out to stations across the country, right? I didn't get one call back, not one. I think 2 months later, I started to get a few letters like, hey, sorry, your stuff is okay, but we moved on, whatever the case may be. So it was like 2 months post-graduation. So graduate in college from May. So probably the end of July, I go back to campus. I go to my professor, who was the one, basically he'd be equivalent to a news director because he was over putting together these newscasts. So I go to him, I say, hey, I'm really struggling to find a job. Like, it's been 2 months. I have no feedback, no nothing. Do you have any connections here in LA that, maybe you can put in a good word or send me in a direction where I can find something just to get in the industry? Because, I just didn't have a job, right? Every college student, that's what you look for. You go to school for 4 years to get a degree to try to find work in that profession. So he calls in a favor, and I got an interview at Fox Sports. So you guys might not know this, but Fox Sports is the only national TV sports network that is out on the West Coast. Everybody else is on the East, NBC Sports Network, ESPN, CBS, everybody's on the East Coast. Fox Sports is the only one out on the West Coast. So this is fantastic because every show that you watch, like Fox NFL Sunday, for example, you watch Colin Cowherd's show, you watch Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, all of it's done in LA. But these weren't shows at the time. Fox NFL Sunday was. So I was interviewing for a production assistant for that job. And I'm wrapping up the story here. We can move on in just a second. I know I'm getting long.
No, you're literally perfectly you're doing great on time.
But I interviewed for a production assistant, and one of the guys who was an executive producer, he had gone to my college. So he was like, dude, you're a Cal State Northridge grad. I'm trying to get as many of us in here. So don't even worry. Like, you got to interview with these other people, but we're going to hire you. Don't worry about it. So I was already feeling great because of that, which goes to show, your college can sometimes open up doors for you, your education and the connections that you make in school, plus having, that degree, that piece of paper with that college can also be good for you too, as you go on through your professional career. So I went through the interviews. I'm talking to every single high level executive, and it's for a production assistant job. Like, it's very entry level, but the interview process was super, high level. So I guess that was actually good because it prepared me for interviews down the line. But anyways, got the job. They called me like 2 days later. And no, that's not right. They called me about a week later. But in the midst of that, like the day after I did this interview, I finally got a call back from a station that I sent my resume tape all the way in Texas, College Station, Texas, very small college town. It's where Texas A&M University is. And that's pretty much it, right? It's all college sports. It's all about college athletics. So I get a call back from the news director. He says, hey, I got your tape. I think you need work, but I see you got a lot of great potential. And I think I can hone on that. And I think you can have great success in this business. So he was like, I want to talk to you for an interview. This was through email. So I said, this is great, fantastic. I'm excited for this opportunity. day later, maybe 2 days later, we do an interview over the phone. And he says the same thing. Basically, I got, some other candidates to go through, but I'll be in touch. Give me about a week. So Fox Sports, they actually didn't call back yet at this time. So I hear from the news director, and he's like, all right, we have made our choice. We'd like to offer you the position. So I was super juiced, very excited. I'm taking my first on-air gig, College Station, Texas. And I'm going out there, like, never have visited this place. I got family in Texas, but this is small town Texas. It's like the middle of the country, right? I'm thinking it's going to be some podunk town where they got cows and, one-way roads, dirt roads and all that stuff, one stop sign, that sort of thing. So then the next day, Fox Sports calls me and they're like, hey, we'd like to offer you the production assistant job. And I'm like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. Actually, I finally got an on-air offer, so I'm going to take this job, but I appreciate the offer. And, they were like gracious, and they were understanding, and they understood, because in my interview, I was telling them, this is my goal. This is what I want to do. I want to be, on TV at the time. I guess, Kurt Menefee, who still does it. I was like, I want to be Kurt Menefee. I want to host the shows. I want to be a part of, the broadcast in that aspect. So they understood my career path. And actually, I'll tell you how the story kind of came back full circle several years later. But I took my first on-air gig to College Station, Texas. And, that was in July. I moved out there, August 2008. And, I've never looked back.
Wow, quite a journey. I think hopefully our scholars and RBI players picked up on a lot of those things that you mentioned. For some of you, I know you're getting ready to interview for summer jobs, so this might come at a good time. But also beyond that, like, you wanted to be on air, but you were available to do these other things so you could be close to it, right? Whether it was like a production assistant and just knowing that you needed to get your foot in the door, which I think, and I'm looking at one scholar in particular who wants to be personality on air one day, whether it's a news anchor or YouTube personality. But so thank you for that.
Right. No problem.
Go ahead, Mick. Did you unmute? No.
My bad, my fault. So let's open it up. If anyone has any questions, of course, Lydia and I have a ton of questions we can go to, but we'll open it up to any scholars and RBI players that have any questions. Don't be shy.
Right.
Yeah, what we got, guys?
I know you're tired of hearing me because you hear from me all the time.
Give
us your name and what program you're associated with, maybe what town you live in.
Got you. I'm McKinley, born in Boston, live in Boston, and part of the Red Sox Foundation 2018 cohort, right?
Red Sox Scholars Program, yep.
Red Sox Scholars Program, yes. And my question is, what was the most exciting story that you got to cover, or most publicized, either or?
That's a good one. And a lot of them have actually come in my time since coming to Boston. But there's a few before, but I would say, I've been to the Super Bowl, I've covered World Series, I've covered the national championship and college football. I've covered the national championship in college basketball, March Madness. So basically every major professional sporting event I've had the opportunity to cover in my 13 years of being in the business. But I guess so you're wanting one that sticks out in my mind? It'd probably be the Super Bowl. The Patriots, the Rams, a couple seasons ago, being in Atlanta, because maybe I'm having a little bit of recency bias because we're just coming off the Super Bowl this past weekend, but it was just phenomenal, and everything that you would expect it to be, because you got media outlets from all over the world being there, and literally the whole world feels like they're watching it. So that was quite an experience, because it's this huge event over one weekend, and there's all this build up to it. So I would say that's probably one that sticks out in my mind right now.
Awesome. And there is a question in the chat from Anna, who's one of our Red Sox scholars. What is the overall goal that you were trying to accomplish throughout your career? That's a loaded one.
Yeah, that is, and that seems to change every single day, really, because if I'm being honest with you, I never thought that I'd be a Red Sox sideline reporter. I never had a career aspiration to do that. I never thought that it would be something that I would be led to, right? So I think my goal is always to be open to new opportunities and put myself in a position where I'm able to see growth in areas that I didn't foresee. It wasn't something that was on my mind, but to have this opportunity to do it, I'm very excited. And my goal, I guess at this point, is just to always be the best that I can be. So if I can do that and be satisfied with the work that I'm putting out there, then I can be content. So my goals change all the time, but right now it's just to be great.
What has been so my name is Sophia. I'm in the Red Sox College program of 2020. What has been like the biggest challenge you faced throughout your career?
Biggest challenge I faced throughout my career. My daughter's name is Sophia, by the way, spelled just like yours. So that's pretty cool. Biggest challenge I faced throughout my career is probably I'm 35 now. I don't know if I look it, but when I was 21, I looked like I was 16, and like looking so young was such a huge challenge because people were like, we can't hire you because you're going to be on the desk with our anchors who look like they could be your grandparents. Right. And, you cannot be hired on age discrimination, but without saying that, people would, tell me those things. Right. So being so young kind of was something that hindered me for quite a long time. As I've gotten older, I started to finally look my age, or at least look representative of somebody who should be where I'm at. So that has been a hindrance, but I would say that's probably the biggest one, which, is something that I couldn't really control, right? You just kind of got to go with things as they come.
Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. Another question in the chat from Aiden, who's a 2019 scholar. Is there another position you want to excel in the future?
Another position I want to excel in the future. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm not just content with, doing sideline. I think at some point, maybe even don't tell TC, but I could be coming for his job pretty soon, being the studio host at some point, being, in this position, sitting in this studio and having analysts and, former players and that sort of thing. So I think that's an aspiration at some point. I dabbled a little bit in calling live sports with NESN Star Boxing. We did that for a couple seasons before the pandemic really hit. We haven't had a chance to do much, but that was kind of exhilarating, and that's something I never had done in my career before. So, and it was another one of those situations where it's like, this was never in my mind, but they asked me to do it, and I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. How bad can it be, right? It was bad, but still, I could still, I have an opportunity to grow in it. So I take a chance, but we'll see where things lead.
Well, okay, my name is Fabiola. I'm from the 2020 cohort. What would you say was like your most important connection in like getting to where you are now?
My most important connection in getting to where I am now. So it would probably be, so there was a manager here at NESN, name's Larry Lawson. He doesn't work here anymore, but he used to. And the way we connected was through a convention for Black journalists, National Association of Black Journalists. So that's another thing. When you get into a career path, when you get to a point where you feel like this is the direction that I want to take my career in, you want to get with the organizations of people who are, a part of that. So for me, example, is Black journalists. And there's also Society of Professional Journalists and various other organizations that have connections and ties to people within whatever industry you're trying to go into. So for me, that was the National Association of Black Journalists. It's an annual convention where basically, every Black journalist within the country is invited. Really, it's open to the public, but it is an organization for journalists of color, right? So that's where I met, and there was a NESN booth, and I met Larry, who's the news director, and I was showing my interest in the company at this point in time. And I failed to mention this, but I didn't go from Texas to Boston. Like, there was several other stops before then. I went from College Station, Texas to Honolulu, Hawaii. After that, I went to Denver, Colorado. And then after Denver, I got to Boston. So at this time, I was in Denver, looking to move on from there. And I met with Larry at this convention, this career fair, and I had my resume tape. At that point, I finally figured it out. It was just 4 minutes, so it was digestible and it was easy to watch and get a feel for the type of work that I could do. And I'd say probably a week later, we had a phone conversation, and there was an opening here at NESN, and that led me to coming here. But it's those type of connections and being a part of organizations that are in close ties with the profession that you're in that really kind of led me to a lot of the relationships that I've had with people in the industry, and also with my job here at NESN.
Awesome. Thank you.
You got it.
Hi, my name is Ariani. I'm a 2019 scholar. My question is, did you always like sports, or did you want to report other news?
Good question. Very good question. The easy answer is yes. I've always loved sports. You know, I've been a part of the sports world my entire life. My dad is a track coach. He ran track, and my mom was a decent athlete as well. And, you know, he had us signed up into baseball, football, basketball, also track, which at the time I definitely did not enjoy, but I certainly learned to appreciate it as I got further in my athletic career. But I played every single sport. So sports was always kind of the driving force, which led me to want to see how I can make it a career or monetize it, so to speak, to be something that I wanted to do, to be my professional career at that point. So I didn't really want to work hard, so to speak. I just want to do something that I enjoy every single day. And what was the second part of your question? I don't know if I answered that part.
It's like, did you want to report other news?
Oh, right. So yes, I did. I wanted to be in sports, but my professors would always say, you know, sports jobs, there's not many of them, right? Because even though there's stations all over the country, there's over 200 television markets in the country, but sports departments are usually pretty thin, right? It's a main person, and it's a person who does the weekends, and you might have a third person. So there's like 3 people usually in the department. So the foundation of my TV career was also doing news. Like, we didn't have a sports program, so I did news, and that's what I learned, how to tell stories. So I did do news, and I was open to doing news, but I was just lucky enough that the job that I was hired for, the first one out the gate, was for a sports position, but I would have been open to doing news if that would have led me here eventually too.
Thank you.
No problem.
Awesome. And Jahmai, I know we're right up at that 4:30 mark, and we don't want to keep you. We've got so much going on, especially as Truck Day was yesterday. Also, we're so excited for the season, but a lot going on, getting ready. We'd love to just ask one last question, if that's okay. If you have a single piece of advice for our middle and high school students right now, what would that be?
Ooh, that's $1 million question right there. Okay. A single piece of advice. If I were to give you guys one piece of advice, it's really, I guess, 2 parts per se. So it would be have conviction in what you want to do, meaning be strong and steadfast in that. If you say you want to be, you know, a star, for example, then, you know, work towards that. And the second part of that would be have self-belief, which is, I guess, a byproduct of having that conviction and that belief within yourself, is believing that you can achieve your goal. I think a lot of times that is really the strength that drives you to thrive in getting what you want to achieve, because along your journeys, you know, for example, like, people didn't want to hire me because they thought maybe I looked too young, or maybe thought I wasn't fit. I didn't fit what they needed, right? But I still kind of believed in myself. So don't lose your self-belief and your conviction for the goals that you want to achieve. And that's really most important, because there'll be a lot of doubters, there'll be a lot of detractors along the way. But if you believe in yourself and if you work hard for that goal, I think that it'll be that much more rewarding once you achieve it. So stay on the path, believe in yourself, most importantly, and, you know, don't listen to the naysayers. Use it as fuel to get where you want to go.
Awesome. That is fantastic advice. And Jahmai, I just want to say thank you from all of us, the scholars and RBI players on the call, and all the ones that are going to be watching this video. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so thrilled to have you. And hopefully we get to see a lot more of you on TV and maybe in person someday when we're back at Fenway.
Yeah, definitely. We're connected now, all of us. So I hope to see you guys in person sometime soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.